Okay. Oh, yeah, this one. Notifications. Okay, so what do you see as you glance through this? Again, remember, read things more than once, glance it over. What do you see throughout? Mark and Sandra and Rosario, you guys need to be paying attention to what's going on, not talking to each other, okay? It looks like it's gonna be New Orleans.
We're not talking, we're just talking about the point of the story. We we're talking about the story, the point of the story.
Remember, if other students were talking to each other while I'm talking, I would yell at them, so the same goes for you guys.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, is it gonna be New Orleans? That's what it looks like at first. But does New Orleans run all the way through? No, okay. So again, that's fine to start off. Oh, I dropped my note on the floor. To start off saying, I think I see New Orleans all the way through this. And then decide, whoops, it only goes down to here, right? The city, that's the last time New Orleans is mentioned, okay? So we can, same thing, go ahead and jot it down, but feel free to cross it out later. You know, this doesn't have to be beautiful. You can cross stuff out. Okay, so if it's not New Orleans, what else do we see mentioned?
Gun violence.
Okay, yeah, that's something that's definitely mentioned. Gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. Okay, similar suits, does that refer to gun violence? Yes, because this is what it's talking about. What's a public nuisance suit? What does that mean? The city of Chicago followed in New Orleans' footsteps, filing a public nuisance suit asking for $453 million in damages. What? A public nuisance suit. Are guns a public nuisance? Yeah, we kind of think of them as being more serious than just being a nuisance, right? But this is, here's what's going on here. This is kind of interesting. They're filing a lawsuit, okay, the costs of gun violence. So are these cities suing for the deaths of people by guns? No. They're filing because guns become a problem just in general, okay? So this actually refers to guns, okay? Gun makers, guns. Okay, so maybe not this, but what is, there is something referred to most often that New Orleans is a part of. We've got New Orleans, then the city of Chicago, okay? And then we've got Atlanta, Bridgeport, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Los Angeles. What are those?
Cities.
Those are cities, okay? So maybe not New Orleans, but cities, right? San Francisco and counties, states, counties. What does this word mean? What's a locality in this sentence? These localities. So Dade County is a county, Florida's a state.
That means local.
Yeah,
Locally.
something, so cities and localities, so not just cities, but in some cases counties and states, so these places. So what is it telling us about cities municipalities, let's use that word, and guns.
Like
What's-
court, municipalities is like something to do with the court or court?
Well, a court is in a municipality or a locality. The Monterey County Courthouse is not the city courthouse, it's the county courthouse. So that's its municipality or its locality. Okay, so what is it telling us about cities and guns? Anybody, Michelle?
Lawsuits.
Okay, so that's a thing, so you want to add this here? Okay, that helps. It can be three things. So what is it telling us about cities and guns and lawsuits?
Cities,
Yeah, again, start, if you're having trouble, start with this. What is doing the action? Sam's gonna start with cities. What action are cities doing?
they're performing lawsuits.
Okay, cities are filing, that's usually the word that we use, lawsuits.
And then troops, guns and
Okay,
troops.
yeah, so that's what, who exactly are they suing?
Gun manufacturers.
Yeah, they're not suing the shooters, okay? So, yeah, New Orleans became the first of many cities to file a lawsuit against gun manufacturers, all right? They want to recover the costs of gun violence from the companies. So never mind the people who are using the guns, they're saying it's the gun manufacturers' fault. Okay, and this, remember, this needs to be a capital letter. Okay. Anything else? Did anybody put anything else as the main idea?
I put, cities and local.
Yeah, localities, yeah.
Localities are filing lawsuits against gun manufacturers due to gun violence.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay. Anything else in there that needs to be in there? Not really. This is a longish paragraph, and you know, it's interesting, this little short paragraph, we get a longer sentence kind of than we do for this one. But basically what this is a list, a lot of this paragraph is taken up with a list of these places that have done this, right? Chicago, so if we made a list of all those cities, we'd have New Orleans, Chicago, okay? And then we'd have to list all these if you had to do this, okay? But here's an interesting thing that doesn't have to be in our main idea. But what does, so if we're gonna go here, this is the intro. Is there a reversal transition in this paragraph?
No.
No, okay. Is there something that gives us the idea there's going to be a list? This is back to our old, the first of many cities, right? Okay, so that's the list. What's this part? It stopped listing states and cities here. These localities were taking cues from the successful state litigation against the tobacco industry. What does that mean? How did the tobacco industry get into this? Can somebody paraphrase sentence 6? Sandra?
They're trying to say that they're the same, that the tobacco industry and gun industry are the same. Like the policies, they're the same.
Perfect. Yeah. The states are saying the gun industry and the tobacco industry, they're seeing them as the same. if, and this evidently has happened, cigarette makers are held responsible for the public costs of smoking, like having to clean up the cigarette butts, you know, fires set by smoking, okay, somebody being careless. Why not gun makers? Okay, yeah, that's kind of an interesting, so this gives the reason why the cities have decided to do it. Yes, Sandra?
But I don't understand, guns, you know, kill really quickly, like instantly, but cigarettes takes a really long time, like many
Okay,
years to get
well-
cancer, and people die from, you know, cancer
Yeah.
over many years, so
But this is
how are they
interesting.
the same though? I don't see the
Well,
point of how they're
are
the same.
these cities suing for the deaths? No. They're not saying that the deaths are the problem. They're suing for the public costs that the city is forced to bear.
Oh, I see,
Yeah,
okay.
so that's what's interesting. I know, we read this and exactly, we say, how can you compare guns and cigarettes? But they're just saying, these are causing problems, not, the deaths are a whole other question. These are causing problems in our city. Guns are causing problems, cigarettes are causing problems. Even if it is just having to pay the janitors to clean up the shelves and clean up the cigarette butts, it's costing the city money. So that's what they're doing. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's kind of an interesting idea. Not that they're not concerned about the death, but they're saying, hey, wait a minute, we have to clean this up. Okay, yeah. So what's the topic sentence? What's the closest to this? Okay, well now, yeah, let's check it. It became the first of many cities. Okay, so without a reversal transition, this is the example of marriage. Yeah, it has to be mine. Okay. Anybody get anything else for that? Yeah, that's pretty. And again, if it's not the reversal transition, check the sentence that has the reference to a list. That, it's not always right, but it's a good place to start looking. Okay. So, what is mentioned?
What was, I'm sorry, what was the topic sentence or number for the last one?
Well, what is the sentence that comes the closest to this? That's, I want you to ask yourself that. What is the sentence that comes the closest to this? Yeah, so if we put this, many cities are filing lawsuits. Okay, does that make sense? So find the one that's the same, says closest to the same thing. Does that make sense? Many cities are filing lawsuits against companies who make guns. New Orleans became the first of many cities to file a lawsuit against gun manufacturers. Does that answer your question? Yeah, so I don't want to just give people the answer.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to find it. Okay, what's repeated or referred to throughout here? Okay, yeah, we're back to moons again, but is it the Earth's moon?
Mars.
Yeah, Mars is moons. Okay. Mars is moons, and then this is their name, so that's a reference to them. They are both moons. They. Okay. So the topic is the two moons of Mars. And even though this is a really short paragraph, it has a long list. It gives us a lot of information. What's the list? Yeah, it tells us all this stuff about it. It gives, they're small, they're both named for horses, right? Phobos and Deimos were the horses that drew the war god's chariot. They're a little bigger than irregularly shaped. What does this mean? Heavily cratered. If you see those pictures of close-ups of the moon, and it's got all those big craters on it, heavily cratered.
It means from meteorites hitting the moon and causing the craters, like
Yeah.
little indentations of
Right,
all over the moon.
Yeah, without the atmosphere, the asteroids hit and cause these big craters. So if they have craters, and here's the first indication that there's a list, but we've already got all this stuff. They're dark.
Yeah, they're dark.
Okay, yeah, so there's, for being such a short paragraph, there's a long list there. Okay, so what is it, and here's another apostrophe thing. The moons that belong to Mars, your apostrophe goes here. Possessive of Mars. So what's it telling us about these moons? What is the main idea here? What is the thing doing the action?
Mars has ugly moons.
Yeah. Mars has moons, 2 moons. Are these, here's an interesting thing, are these similar or different?
Similar.
They're similar. Okay, we could add that. Okay, so what's the sentence that comes the closest to that?
2.
Probably 1, yeah. It's tricky because this, you have to kind of, that's a little bit of what's called inference. But yeah, just the fact that it has them is the closest thing. Because the rest of it is really pretty much a list, okay? It doesn't ever state that they're similar, but that kind of comes out, yeah. So you wouldn't even need this really. That's not perfect, but it's the closest. And again, as a writer, when you get into I'm teaching the 301 right now, I would, as somebody writing this for a 301 class, I would kind of ask them to make that clearer to their readers. What are you trying to say here? Mars has 2 moons that are very similar to each other. They're almost the same. You must say that. Don't just make your reader have to guess whether that's what you're trying to say. Okay? Yeah, so as we can see, these aren't always, it doesn't always work perfectly. But the point is to, when we get into longer paragraphs, to be able to kind of figure out what's going on. If you read it through and say, I have no idea what this says. And you read it through again and say, I still have no idea what this says. Then apply some of these strategies. Some of them I think you're doing automatically already. But apply some of them to try to figure out what's going on. Okay, so what about this one? What do you see repeated most often in here? This looks
Cannibalism?
Like, yeah, cannibalism, okay? This looks like that's gonna be repeated. Okay, cannibalism, okay. Bodies were consumed, that's cannibalism, right? Warriors were eaten, that refers to cannibalism, okay? Priests were consumed, right? That all refers to cannibalism. What does this word mean? Partaking. Yeah, partaking is you partake of a feast. That refers to eating. Okay, so yeah, this is all references to cannibalism. Okay. Cannibalism is generally considered a monstrous crime. It is the subject of strict social taboos. What does that mean? What does sentence number 2 mean? If something is a taboo, what does that mean?
Is that a kind of exercise?
What?
Is that a kind of exercise?
No. Let's try to get it from the context. It's considered a monstrous crime. It is the subject of strict social taboos. So do we like to generally think about monstrous crimes? Every once in a while you see these stories on the news about somebody who, cut up their roommate and kept him in the freezer, Every once in a while you get one of these stories, okay? And you kind of don't want to, you see it and you think, my brain just can't take that in. We just don't, in this society, we just don't want to accept that. We kind of say, okay, that, we don't want to think about it. A taboo is something that you don't talk about, something that people are uncomfortable thinking about or talking about, okay? So that's another vocabulary word for you. I don't know where it comes from. It sounds like some kind of non-English word originally. I'm not sure where it comes from. But yeah, a taboo is a no-no. It's something you don't talk about, okay? So is there a reversal transition? Okay, yet, now be careful of this next sentence. People have trouble with this. It's got a lot of information in it. Again, read it carefully. According to the ancient Greek historian, anybody know how to pronounce his name? It isn't what it can't really sound it out. Herodotus. Has anyone ever heard that pronounced? It's pronounced Herodotus. It's one of those things where you can't sound it out. The Greek pronunciation is Herodotus, okay? So according to this guy, however you
Like
pronounce it.
Hercules? Hero like Hercules?
No, he was a historian. He was an ancient Greek historian, and his name was Herodotus. So according to this historian, ancient cultures, now again, think in terms of subject, verb, main idea. Yeah.
I'm curious, Herodotus, I can't say his name. Did he fight Troy in the Greek War? Is that what they're talking about there?
He may have written about it, but he didn't fight. He was a historian. Yeah, so he was, this sentence is tough to figure out. Think in terms of this. Who's doing the action? What action are they doing? Herodotus did what in this sentence? What's the action that Herodotus said? Yet according to Herodotus, ancient cultures resorted to cannibalism for sound reasons. According to this guy, so Herodotus, I know it's a hard sentence. Herodotus said what? What did this historian say? Okay, the historian said that ancient cultures did what? Yeah, Herodotus says that ancient cultures practiced cannibalism, right? That's what this boils down to. For what were considered sound reasons. What's a sound reason? What does sound mean? It doesn't mean sound like for good reasons. Yeah, okay. So according to this guy, Herodotus says that ancient cultures unapologetically and openly, so we kind of say, oh no, we don't want to talk about this. But in ancient cultures, they openly did this for what they believed were good reasons. Okay? Yeah, this sentence tends to throw people, and one thing that people tend to get out of this is that the Greeks did this. Does it say that the Greeks did this necessarily? No, it just says he was Greek, and he said ancient cultures did this. Okay, so what's our question to Herodotus? According to Herodotus, ancient people did this for good reasons. What are those reasons? What could any culture possibly give us as a good reason to eat other people? Right? That's what we're looking for. I know. See now, yes, so Diana is making a face, and that's the social taboo. We just don't want to talk about this. You know, yeah, in our culture, we just don't like to talk about this. That's the taboo. Even though you're, yeah, I'm going to keep an open mind, we still have this taboo. Yeah.
Maybe they were trying to save the world by eating people?
Well, this is what we're going to find out. What is the answer? Okay? What's the first reason that the ancient cultures thought it was okay to eat people? Sandra?
A long time ago, you know, the education back then wasn't exactly like the right kind of education. Like, they just ate people because they thought it was okay.
But is that a reason that they give
I mean,
in the
there's no
paragraph?
rules back then.
Okay, but is that a reason that they give in the paragraph? That's what we're looking for.
No.
What reasons do they give here? What's the first reason? Mark?
Because the clan had their own reasons for eating people. Like, they thought people were good to eat, and they thought it would help with.
But is that what it says here? We're trying to figure
Yeah,
out what the reasons are in this paragraph. What's the first reason?
To keep their ancestors' wisdom. That's one of the reasons.
That what?
To keep their ancestors' wisdom.
Okay, good. Yeah, in some cases, so this is one, the bodies of the elderly, okay? So they didn't kill them necessarily, but after death, they would eat their bodies to keep the ancestors' wisdom. Okay, so that's the first thing on our list, which makes a certain kind of sense, you know. Okay, what's the second thing? Here's our list, again, basic stuff here. What's the second thing, Sam?
To prevent the remains.
Yeah, okay, so warriors, what does this word mean, slain?
Kill.
Warriors, so soldiers who were killed in battle. So again, they're not killing, you know, the idea of cannibals in the cartoons and stuff is that people, you know, these people go out and kill other people to eat them. They're not killing these people. The bodies that were killed by other means were also sometimes eaten to prevent the remains, meaning the bodies, from being taken by enemies. Okay? Why didn't they want them to be taken by enemies? Yeah. Yeah, so yeah. Soldiers eaten to prevent enemies from making charms. Yeah, so these are ancient societies, back to our old wives' tales. This is where a lot of these ideas came from, were these ancient societies. Okay, and what's the third reason, Sandra?
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's okay. Go ahead.
What's the third reason? Yes. So when a priest died,
From
they believed, yeah, they could share in the spirit. for ancient cultures who still believe in these old ideas, that makes a kind of a sense. Okay. Does that make sense to people, what's going on? So what might have helped us up here was something that said there were 3 reasons why people did this, then you can see, but even without that, you guys should be able to pick up the 3 parts here, okay? So the topic is cannibalism, and again, you could put cannibalism and ancient cultures or something, but this would be enough if you have this right. So what is it telling us about cannibalism? Who did what? What, Sam?
Ancient
Yeah,
cultures
ancient cultures.
used cannibalism
Good,
for
okay, so, and the action they did was use cannibalism.
for those
Yeah, then some people are still, keep in mind the difference between the main idea and a summary. Now, if you had to write a summary of this, you could do this. But for your main idea, you really just want to, again, group the ideas. Does that make sense? Yeah. Summary, you want to get a little bit longer, although judiciously, you can still do something like this in a summary, depending on the material. So what sentence comes the closest? Start with the reversal transition.
Number 1?
Well, cannibalism is generally considered a monstrous crime. Is that what this
3.
says? Yeah, it's 3. The one that starts with the reversal transition, which is what we said. Herodotus said that ancient cultures did this. Does that make sense to people, how we're getting to all those things? Okay, yeah, this is not easy. This is not necessarily easy, but I think it's getting easier for you as we work through them. Let's see, did anybody have real trouble with this one? That's maybe a little bit. This one should have been pretty obvious because of the events, right? The list of events, the transitions that gave you what's going on. One thing about this one, what are these dates? Just in the last couple of minutes. What are these dates? These
When he
are,
was born and
this is when he was born and when he's died. Very often, especially in a college textbook, if you see something like this right after a person's name at the beginning, that's a pretty good clue. This is going to give you his life story. Okay? And what was the main thing that happened in his life? He went from being a 97-pound weakling to a famous bodybuilder. Okay? This should have been pretty clear because it starts out, you can see that there's a first, also, there's a kind of a list there. This one is one that you might have had trouble with, but again, the thing, if you look for the repeated thing, these are 2 different people named Wells, and the dramatization, the broadcast, yes.
Oh, but I noticed you circled H.G. Wells
Yeah, H.G. Wells.
with the comma. There's some of them that don't have the comma.
Say again?
Some of the Wells word that you
Okay,
wrote,
that's
some
what
of
I'm
them
saying.
don't. No,
Be
it's-
careful. These are 2 different names. Orson Welles is different from H.G. Wells. Orson Welles is spelled with an E, and H.G. Wells is spelled without the E. Does that make sense? 2 different people. He's the actor, and he's the writer.
But then why does the apostrophe, does it have W-E-L-L-S and then an apostrophe and then an S?
Okay, because this guy's name is Wells. So something that belongs to Mr. Wells is done this way. if it was Orson Welles, so we got two people. He would be, if we had a possessive of him, it would be this. Does that make sense? So what is it telling us about Orson Welles and this play? Anybody get this one?
Oh, okay, I got it, thank you.
Yeah, it's two different names. I know it's tricky because they're always mentioned together. Anybody, Sam, what did you put for this one?
For this play, Orson Welles novel had a meaning to it, but people were scared
Okay,
of.
yeah, he broadcast this thing. The point here is kind of like the Titanic. He was, no one was listening to him. Then he broadcast this play, and kind of like the Titanic, that play was what eventually made Orson Welles famous. Although he became much more famous for other stuff later on. But this one's kind of tricky. The main, I'll just tell you, the topic sentence here is this one. His fortune changed dramatically for the better. That's a little tricky. Okay, so we'll see how you did on the other two. Go ahead and turn that in. And then remember to come on Thursday, and I'll try to get your reading center report, ready to write about something about weird or scary things, and come to class with your journal ready to hand to me at the start of class, with all 12 pages in it.